against four-legged creatures, as our emotional brains were initially wired for. We're up against two-legged creatures, though. Our stress system activates us to worry about people. Worry about people while we were growing up, worry about people in our lives currently. And over the years, that stress system began, as Beth was saying, in our brains to be protected, in our childhoods it was to be protected. Because in our families growing up, imagine if as really young infants and young kids, we had a sense of the ways in which the adults in our lives weren't really so attuned. They weren't really so competent in certain ways. It wouldn't be so great. So this wiring in our brains has us blame ourselves when we get frustrated. It has us not being aware of other people so that when we get frustrated, which we're naturally going to get, we blame ourselves, and as we get language acquired, we fill in the blank. It must be me because I must be too selfish. I must be too needy. I must be too hungry. There must be some reason why they're not coming to help me out. And then we have these different ways in which, as gender, males have a way of having to adapt. Early on, boys are not allowed to have feelings. They're called names. They're told that that's not okay, and they're very directly helped to get rid of those feelings. They're allowed to be angry, they're allowed to be aggressive, but they're not allowed to have softer emotion. Well, if we're female, that's not the case. Generally, we're allowed to have feelings. But if we're female, something else happens. Somewhere between early development and 5th grade, something changes in normative girl development, where girls are negatively referencing themselves. So they're saying things like, I'm not so bad at that. I'm not so stupid. I'm not so ugly. They're no longer, by 5th grade, so 11, 12 years old, saying, I'm really good at that. I look great. I'm very smart. They've taken in the role modeling of the people around them, and the female people around them, and they have somehow learned through their socialization that to be scared, that it's not okay, that I have to back off from claiming it. And then we know, because we've all lived through this, we've all lived through middle school, so we get better at that. We just get better at being cagey, and we get better at being afraid. And we get better at pushing away compliments and being more self-critical. And we normatively kind of dim our lights and keep away from having us be in the spotlight. We say things like, we see other people being made fun of for she thinks she's so much, she thinks that she's so cool, she's so full of herself. Names get called, and they're not nice names. So even if we're not the ones that are getting called the names, we see it enough to know, don't want it. Well, for the rest of our lives, in a lot of ways, we're recovering from that. We're recovering from what we had to adapt to be okay, to be safe. And if we had other kinds of differences growing up, learning differences, if we were different in our neighborhood from the other kids that were in the neighborhood, if there was somebody in our family that was different from other people, we felt some way in which we, some kind of shame and embarrassment and fear that we were going to get made fun of. And the problem for all of this is that when we're out there in the real world, and we're all out there in the real world, none of this inhibiting stuff is really empowering to us. It is the opposite of what it is that we need to be doing. We need to be courageous. We need to be bold. We need to speak up. We need to try. We need to take risks. So we're up against that adaptive inhibition that had us not raise our hand, not assert an idea, not make a direct phone call, not ask for something that might be beneficial to us.